Tonight, Los Angeles Tourism is co-hosting an only in LA mashup showcasing our phenomenal culinary scene and the thing that put LA on the map, Hollywood. I'm Jamie Simpson with Los Angeles Tourism, and this evening I'm joined by Chef Neal Fraser, who will share his take on a dessert from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. He'll be making a Nebraska Jim flambe. And the film's producer, Shannon McIntosh, is also here this evening. We're really excited to have you here. Quentin Tarantino's love letter to LA was most certainly this film, so it's fitting that we're all going to party together and talk about Los Angeles. And Redbird Viviana's bar director, Tobin Shea, will also show everyone this evening how to make a cocktail inspired by the film, a whiskey sour that we know Rick Dalton favors, and we'll also talk a little bit about Hennessy XO. And first, I want to introduce Stacy Sun, the director of the dineL.A program.
Thanks, Jamie. Hi, everyone. As Jamie mentioned, I'm Stacy Sun. I'm the executive director for dineL.A, and we're most known for Restaurant Week. So I wanted to introduce everyone involved with today's demo, starting with Chef Neal Fraser. He is a beloved and celebrated LA chef, born and raised in LA, and he is a chef owner of Redbird at the Viviana, located in downtown LA. And Neal has appeared on Top Chef Masters, Hell's Kitchen, and Iron Chef America, and he is an avid cyclist.
Hi.
And then I'd like to introduce Tobin Shea. He is the bar director at Redbird, and he's been with Redbird since they opened in January of 2015. And Time Out named Redbird LA's best new restaurant program in 2017. Tobin can definitely make a mean cocktail. And then we have Shannon McIntosh, who is the producer on Quentin Tarantino's award-winning movie, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which earned her an Academy Award nomination. And the movie also won a Golden Globe and Critics' Choice Award for Best Picture. So Neal and Shannon, how do you two know each other?
Everybody meets at preschool in Los Angeles. That's where we met, preschool.
Since our kids who are now, mine's almost 15 and yours is 15 since they were 3 years old. And my son Quinn used to come home and say, this amazing man brought me this food. And sometimes it'd be an orange or be something. And I was like, who is this man? And he's like, it's Neal. So when I finally met Neal, I was like, oh, your name is Neal. I was trying to figure out who Neal is. So we always joke that we always want to call him Neal. So
Shannon still calls me Neal.
Yes.
And can you guys talk about, well, Neal, can you talk about the dish that you're going to make? And then Shannon, it'd be great if you could, just chime in and let us know what the inspiration, how does the dish tie in with the movie and what the inspiration is for that?
Well, do we have the clip? Should we show the clip and then we'll talk through it?
Well, that looks delicious. Thank you.
Enjoy, sir.
between them.
After that Musso and Frank's lunch meeting, Marvin did provide Rick job opportunities in the Italian film industry.
Rick Dalton. Marvin Schwartz here. Hold on. Hennessy XO, under rocks.
Yes, Mr. Schwartz.
2 words. Nebraska Jim, Sergio Corbucci.
Nebraska what? Sergio who?
Sergio Corbucci.
Hey, who's that?
The second best director of spaghetti westerns in the whole wide world. He's doing a new western. It's called Nebraska Jim. And because of me, he's considering you.
Well, Rick got Nebraska Jim. And Rick made a rather compelling Nebraska Jim, existing quite nicely within Sergio Corbucci's rogues gallery of anti-heroes.
When Neal said you guys had approached him about doing a recipe based on a movie, something inspired by a movie, there's a lot in our movie that we have a lot of restaurants and a lot of things that are inspired by drinks and desserts. And this one, which was less descriptive, was like, I've seen Neal make some flambe things before. I thought that would be interesting. And knowing that they have Tobin there, I thought, well, we've got Hennessy XO that is featured in that clip. And then there's so many other wonderful cocktails that are always in a Quentin movie, but especially in this movie. Rick Dalton loves to have a cocktail, whiskey sour or margarita or whatever. So I thought this would be a fun one for Neal and Tobin to take on.
Awesome. And we know that Neal, he loves fire. So this is, it's going to be perfect. All right. So Neal, do you want to go ahead and tell everyone what you're making, and we can go ahead and get started with the demo.
Yeah, so funny enough, I've been trying to get our pastry chef to do flaming desserts for the last 2 years, which he's never done. The idea of like setting something on fire and serving in the dining room just is something that I really love. So the Nebraska Jim Cherries Flambe seemed like the right choice, although you can't really see what's going on behind the camera. It's actually Nebraska Jim Cherries Jubilee. Cherries Jubilee, like a lot of flaming desserts, is a classic old school dessert you would have seen in menus when they used to bring a cart up to the table and light stuff on fire. So that's what we're gonna do. You guys ready?
All right, let's see.
Yeah.
All right, so I got my pan over here. I'm gonna start off and put my cherries in there. The cherries are actually just coming into season at the farmer's market. Got my pan pretty hot. I'm gonna add a little bit of sugar. It has a little bit of cornstarch in it.
And is that any kind of sugar?
Yeah, just regular sugar. And I'm gonna add some orange juice to that. Kind of caramelize the sugar and the orange juice.
What did you just add there?
Last ingredient.
And you can't have a flaming dessert without setting it on fire. So I have a little Hennessy XO. So you can get a nice fiery dessert table side. And then classically, you just spoon that on top of ice cream. So our pastry chef Casper made us some ice cream. I got a little butter to finish that off because butter makes everything better. And again, this is like, cooked in real time, super fast. Cherries, butter, brandy, or Hennessy brandy? Hennessy XO, yes. I've got some vanilla ice cream. We're gonna spoon that on top. And as Tobin's making cocktails, we're gonna eat some ice cream.
So this is something we could make at home while we're on lockdown, right? Like you can, as long as we can get to a store and find some cherries.
You just need to sneak out the back window, army crawl across the alley to the store, get some cherries. Yeah, everything else you should have in your house: sugar, any kind of juice, any kind of high-proof alcohol. And
Neal, how do you get the liquor to light up? Do you have to dip the pan a bit to catch the flame on the stove? How do you do that?
if it's hot enough, it's going to start to. You guys see that? It's going to start to high proof alcohol lights real easily, so it's not hard at all. It's really just a matter of, you know, getting it above, I don't know what it is, 150 degrees, but my pan was pretty hot, so.
Shannon, what kind of conversation was had about having that dessert featured in the background of the movie, and what does that say about like the dedication to the period for the film?
I think that's, I mean, it's the Hennessy XO, it's, you know, with Marvin Shores, is Al Pacino ordering that. We wanted something to be magnificent that you could actually see in the background that was very period and wouldn't distract from the conversation, but could be an interesting thing. And, you know, fire looks beautiful. And it took a few tries on that day to get it, but our guy finally got it. So it was actually fun. It was a fun day on set.
Nice.
And do you pit the cherries, or, I mean, are they fresh cherries? Did you pit them? Are they jarred?
Pitted cherries. Yeah, but that's super simple. You could, you know, either make your own ice cream or buy ice cream. Probably easier to buy some ice cream. And then just, yeah, sugar, orange juice, high proof alcohol, preferably Hennessy XO or Hennessy VXOP, or something, you know, fancy from France.
So Shannon, you've obviously been inside Redbird and Viviana, and it is, I mean, even just the video that we saw at the beginning of this discussion, it looks like a movie trailer, and both of those locations are just showstoppers. Tell us, Shannon, what you love about Redbird and Viviana and what those places speak to you.
There's so many things to love about Redbird and Viviana, and I was watching the video getting actually very teary-eyed that we can't go there now. We couldn't drive down there and pick up takeout on Thursday, Friday, or Saturday, which you get by dock or on the app or on the Redbird site. You can connect to that. But there's so many beautiful rooms that are there. And the first time I was in Viviana, I was actually in the main cathedral hall. And this used to be the old diocese, Catholic diocese, until after, I believe it's the Northridge earthquake. And then the priests had to move out. So you've got the cathedral part that's beautiful, which you saw like in the opening of the video. And there's often weddings and dinner parties and different things that happen there, bigger events. But then there's the restaurant that Neal and Amy have so elegantly put together that's on the downstairs floor. And there's different rooms. There's the bar where you can go see Tobin and get all your different drinks, your wonderful wines. They've got one of the best bar menus in the city. And then there's, you know, no matter what corner you're in the restaurant, like you feel very intimate, and I love light. And so it's so light and you feel very spacious and light, and it's just so beautiful in the downstairs. And what's even more wonderful, if you need to have an event or something else, they have, and Neal can talk you through all the different rooms that they have there, but there are many smaller rooms for dinner parties and patios where you can do dinner parties, and Neal's got a garden down there. What about your garden? Tell us about your garden, Neal.
Our garden's growing crazy right now. It's doing super well. We have lots of fava beans and artichokes, lots of herbs, nasturtiums, strawberries. The cherry tomatoes are just starting to flower. Kind of a pity that we can only use it for to-go, but you know, the one kind of, you know, silver lining we have in this whole thing is, you know, we're a restaurant of 3.5 acres in downtown Los Angeles, so we have lots of room if we ever get the opportunity to open again, to social distance and have people entering and exiting out of different areas. And one of the things that I've always kind of been excited about doing inside the restaurant, which we've never gotten around to doing because we've been too busy running it, is having kind of a peripatetic dinner inside the same restaurant where you kind of entered on the courtyard, had a cocktail, maybe an app, and then moved to another room and had a course, and then moved to another room and had another course, moved to another room and had dessert. So it's kind of exciting that might be the new normal that we have to kind of back ourselves into based on COVID-19. And we're kind of, you know, excited for the challenge of seeing how we can kind of not only, you know, deal with these things on, you know, a daily basis, but deal with them in a way that just feels like it's part of the experience. It's not, you know, kind of, you know, it doesn't downplay it. It's kind of like we're playing to it. Like, you know, what do we have to do if we're, cooking in the desert? What do we have to do if we're cooking on a river? What do we have to do if we're cooking in this new kind of normal? We're excited to kind of embrace it and bring hospitality to it and still make it fun.
It's great.
I mean, it is such a beautiful. Ooh,
Sorry.
go ahead, Shannon.
I was going to say what's really great about, speaking to the food at Redbird, if anyone's watching this and once they can either order online or go there eventually, there's something on the menu for everyone. Neal is known for a lot of game, and my husband loves meat. I don't. So he's got this amazing tofu that I can order, if I want a fish dinner that I can order, and then he's got the game and the other kind of stuff that my husband loves. So, and vegetables galore that come from his own garden. So it's a wonderful way to go experience food so that someone can have all the different things that they love, or the families that like different things.
Yeah. I think growing up in LA, we always kind of were known as a city where everything has to be sauce on the side and everything had to be kind of, I don't know, we had to deal with these, 1% of neurotic customers, and we kind of got used to it. And as opposed to, having to have people order special things, we just have all that stuff on the menu. So if you have, anything that you don't eat or don't like or can't eat or, can't consume because it makes you feel terrible or sick, it's just kind of all on the menu. So hopefully you don't come in and, hopefully find something you like and enjoy. And we put as much love into the tofu as we do, into the, more exotic things.
Hey, Neal, on your takeout menu for this week, what's on there?
The braised short rib, we have the Calabrian shrimp, the beet salad, a couple dishes we're still working on. I think we're going to change one of the soups up this week. We usually have a couple of soups, carrot ginger soup. Try to make stuff that not only is delicious, but also stuff that travels well, because, it's different when you're making it as well as you're consuming it 30 or 45 minutes later. I think that's something we've done very well with our cocktail program too, which Tobin can talk about more, but, we're bottling stuff. So, if you consume it then, great. And if you don't, you consume it the next day, it's great too. We're carbonating and capping stuff. And Amy and Tobin, I don't know who found it, we just found actual cans so we can actually start canning our own cocktails, Tobin. And, we're just trying to make everything fun. I mean, just the little touches, which is what Amy's really good at. It's kind of what, hopefully makes people feel special. The pot of quejo we used to serve in a bag. At the table at Redbird, we're serving that same bag, although it's a new bag in our to-go kits. We did a cocktail program for the last couple of weeks, one based on the Kentucky Derby, and then just try to, take the little touches that hopefully people appreciate. And we're still trying to, treat the to-go food with as much, reverence as we do with the food we serve in our dining room.
And people can go on your website and order it through Talk, right? And it's available Thursday, Friday, Saturday?
Right now, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, yes.
Knowing how important conservancy and preservation is, Neal, and maybe you can talk a little bit about the spaces, about Bibiana and Redbird. But Shannon, I know that, in hearing the location manager and set designer talk about filming Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I know preservation is also really, really important for period films. And so can you both, just from your perspective, talk about preservation and what it means for your space and for your industry and for this film in particular?
Sure. I mean, we got gifted this amazing, building, and, we never thought we would open a restaurant in an adjoining space or the first permitted building in the city of Los Angeles. And, those who have born and raised in Los Angeles, or the people who come to LA. LA is a very new city in almost every way. It's new from its population, it's new from its architecture. Thinking that Bibiana was the first permitted building in the city of LA in 1876. If you went to New York City or Philadelphia or Boston, you walked around, you're like, there's buildings from the 1700s that are still occupied. 1700s in LA, there was really one street. It was Olvera Street, and that was it. And so to kind of be able to help save a building and build a business out of it and have it thrive is something that we've really liked. I mean, I remember, when I was a kid, my mom thought it was a really great idea to drop me off on Hollywood Boulevard on Friday nights. We used to roller skate up and down Hollywood Boulevard because the sidewalks are really wide and really smooth. And we used to go to this ice cream place called CC Brown's, which is long gone, but there's not a lot of that stuff left. It's like you go to the Roosevelt Hotel and you go to, a lot of the locations that, Shannon shot her movie in Hollywood. There's not a lot of that stuff left. And although, Viviana and Redbird were never known for being, a public space in the right of like somewhere where you go and, patronize, and buy stuff, it's a, rejuvenation of a very old building that, hopefully will be here for, another 150 years.
Yeah, when we were making the movie, it really became apparent to us just the magnitude of the gentrification that was going on in Hollywood and in Los Angeles. And it was just something, when we were actually shooting at Musso and Frank's, there were construction sites everywhere around us, and we shut down Hollywood Boulevard for some blocks, and a lot of people thought we were the purpose for the traffic, but really even more so was the construction. And we really realized that had we tried to shoot the movie a few months later, we might not be able to get what we wanted within the driving shots. When you see Brad driving up and down Hollywood Boulevard, I mean, things changed drastically with the number of high rises that were going up everywhere. And historically speaking, I mean, on Hollywood Boulevard and in Westwood and many places, we wanted to be as accurate as possible. So Barbara Ling, our production designer, and our location manager, Rick Schuler, went back and they were looking at how they all looked back in the old days, and not exact, but it's as close as you can be. The one thing that looks exactly like it did 100 years ago, from probably when it opened, was Musso and Frank's, and we shot in there, and then you also see it when we do the drive-bys. But that space in itself has never really changed, and so I think it's been really important to the owners of Musso's that they celebrate the history that Musso offers in Hollywood, which I believe, and Neal, you probably know, I think it's September is when they celebrated their 100th anniversary. And we shot in there like a year and a half ago. So in their 99th year, I guess it would be. But, it looks then like it did back 100 years ago. And it was actually pretty phenomenal. And it brought the feeling of old Hollywood, which is what we wanted. And that kind of speaks to even now, like with the restaurants that we're talking about, dineL.A. Musso and Frank's is one of the restaurants that did not furlough their workers. They've actually supported their workers this whole time during the pandemic. So I just really want to shout out to them. And when they open up, I hope that people will go there and frequent them. So give them some.
The thing about Musso I really love, it's still relevant. Like I still go there and really enjoy it. It might not be the most culinary experience, but it's still done well. I mean, the scallops are done right. The meat is done right. We actually were fortunate to cook for Ruben's 75th anniversary? 50th anniversary? They closed the restaurant down, and Ruben, who unfortunately since has passed away, he was a bartender at Musso for 50 years, or more than 50 years. And he literally came to LA, knocked on the door of Musso and Frank. They told him to go across the street and buy a shirt. And he started off, I think, as a busser and then a bar back and then a bartender. And his son worked there, and we got to cook in the Musso kitchen, which was a super trip because I've been going to Musso and Frank since I was a kid. I mean, I grew up in Laurel Canyon. My dad used to work, if not on Hollywood Boulevard, he used to work very close. He worked at Capitol. He worked at the Music Bags. A lot of the recording studios were in that general vicinity. And we used to go to Musso a lot, as much as we used to go to Schwab's and things like that. And it's just very cool to kind of go back, and it feels exactly the same as it did when I was, the first time I ordered steak tartare and the server came to the table and asked me if I knew what that was. And I said, yes. And then they brought it to the table, and I literally was bawling my eyes out. And they took it back to the kitchen and made a hamburger out of it, which I'm sure was of the 500th kid to order steak tartare and start crying at the table. But it's still exactly the same. And I think that's something you said about, a city is always innovating and trying to be new. And I think that says something about, LA, that, we can still have that stuff that's old and nostalgic, but it also has to be embraced, just like restaurants have to be embraced. The only way that we'll get through this is by people, wanting to do this stuff, and that's something we need to do.
And there's that saying, when everything old becomes new again, and that's like Musso's. And many restaurants, I believe, got a lot of business after our movie, and it's like Musso was fully discovered. It's always been known. You've had a lot of people some people go there every day, and it became a hot spot. People couldn't get in. The same thing for Casa Vega. That's been there for years and years. And El Coyote, those are fixtures of the Los Angeles community that then, speaking of tourism, there are people who would go on the restaurant, you know, the Once Upon a Time in Hollywood restaurant tours. So they'd hit Musso's, they'd hit Casa Vega, they'd hit El Coyote. And sometimes I know people that would come in and out for business. They're like, we're at Casa Vega tonight. So it was fun. And speaking of Casa Vega, they are open for pickup now. So Christy Vega was very excited last week. We all got texts and emails that she was open. They're doing some takeout drinks too, and they happen to have margaritas, and they have a Tarantino margarita that I hope it's to go. So, and they're probably open Tuesday for Takeout Tuesday.
Yeah, one of the, the kind of relaxations of laws the state of California did very early on is that if you have a liquor license, you can sell alcohol to go as long as it's in a sealed container. And I think since that was originally passed, if you have a beer and wine license, you can also now sell full alcohol to go in any restaurant in the state of California. And from what I've heard, that might be something they do for many years to come. So kind of
awesome. So since we're talking cocktails, let's have Tobin show us
let's
the
get Tobin
cocktail.
over here.
We're thirsty, Tobin.
Come on, Tobin.
Hey, how are you? How's everyone doing?
Good.
Good, I'm so glad to hear it. It's so exciting to be a part of this because there's certain movies that really want you to get that cocktail in your hand. Like James Bond, you want the martini, and The Big Lebowski, you want the White Russian. And with this one, you definitely want the whiskey sour. As soon as you leave that movie theater, you're like, I have to have that whiskey sour. You have to have that Hennessy XO on the rocks. So being a bartender for as long as I have, it was A, exciting that it was such a cocktail-forward movie, and B, that it was shot in Musso and Frank, which has always been like bartending mecca for every bartender that works in LA or just essentially anywhere. Like, I can't tell you how many times like everyone has said that the greatest martini they've ever had in their life is at Musso and Frank, and it's true. I mean, you have that martini in that environment, it's absolutely spectacular. And, you know, it's one of the places that still carries Boodles, which I love. So anytime I get there, I'll have the Boodles Gin Martini or a whiskey sour or the Hennessy XO on the rock. But it was so funny that Rick Dalton enjoyed this drink so much 8 times in one night before his big shoot is Caleb Dakota. But we'll go through the cocktail right now that he loved so much, which is a whiskey sour. And you could do this at home. This is so easy. Too many times we'll have people talk about how I can't make a drink at home or I need mixers or anything like that. You don't. You need fresh lemon juice, you need sugar, and you need a spirit of some sorts. And if you have that, you're good to go. And if you have a few other things, you're good to go for many cocktails beyond that. But today we'll just get a whiskey sour, and then afterwards we'll have a little toast with the XO on top of that. But take some fresh squeezed lemon juice. You know, take the lemon. If you have the juicer, juice it. Hand squeeze or do that. But fresh lemon juice works the best. It's always best to use fresh. So do like 3/4 ounce, ½ ounce, depending on your preference.
How many lemons would you say that is, Tobin? Is that 1 or 2?
What's that, 3/4 ounce? Yeah, no, this will be for 1. Do you want to do for 2? Let's do for 2.
So how many lemons to major ounce?
One lemon. Typically 1 lemon will give you 1 ounce. 1 lime will give you 3/4 ounce. So try to keep that in your head. It depends on the limes. Sometimes they're smaller, but for the most part, 1 lemon, 1 ounce, 1 lime, 1 ounce, 3/4 ounce. So yeah, 1 lemon. If you're lucky, you have the lemon tree in your backyard. We have a lemon tree here at Redbird in our beautiful garden. And then we're gonna do simple syrup here. This is a rich syrup. It's 2 parts sugar to 1 part water. So I'm gonna just do a ½ ounce of that. And then I'm going to do a little dry curacao, which is an orange liqueur. And here comes the fun part where we do the egg white. And normally, we do so many of these that we'll have a bunch of eggs like separated. It's been a long time since I separated it here on the spot, so it's clear for me. So yeah, we crack it, and we do it in a different tin. So if you drop the yolk in there, you don't have to start over. So do 1 tin, and then we're going to separate. It's been a long time since I had to separate like this. There we go. All right? So get the egg white in there. What the egg white is going to do, it's going to give us some froth, give us some emulsification, add a little body to the cocktail. Wash my hands. And then we're going to add the most important ingredient, which is the whiskey. And here we have Woodinville bourbon. This is made in Washington, and it's also a member of the Hennessy family. Just recently, they added this to their portfolio. Washington State bourbon whiskey, so it's 50% corn. Wheat, barley is the other buildup on that. They just added that. So what we're going to do now is we're going to shake. And when we shake our drinks, we have our egg whites here. We're going to add the ice. We're going to shake first. Now, a lot of people would tell you to dry shake this first. I kind of do it the opposite way. I feel like you get a better emulsification if you do the dry shake afterwards. So we're going to shake this first. And as I tell anyone shaking their drinks, you need to wake your drink out, not rock it to sleep. So give it a good shake. And then we're going to strain into our top half here. If you don't have a shaker at home, this is kind of hard to do without a shaker, but you could do it with a couple glasses, to be honest with you. Or you can go back and forth. You're not going to get the best froth on the egg white, but try it anyway. So we're going to shake it now without the ice. And what we're doing here is getting a nice emulsification, and we're also frothing that egg up. We're getting a nice meringue, as we would say in a pie world. And then here we go, a whiskey sour. Now, like I said, when you, as a bartender, when you go in and see a movie that's so cocktail forward, it's absolutely spectacular to have that now. See how frothy that is? Can you see that? Let me lift that up here in the camera.
That looks
see how frothy that is? That's amazing.
That looks good.
Yep. So then we're going to just finish it up with a little orange twist. And then we'll talk about when Rick Dalton sat at the table at Musso and Frank's, as we were talking about earlier with Mr. Schwartz, played by Al Pacino. Sonny Donato, who was a bartender at Musso and Frank, was actually in the movie. He's in the background, but I think that he made, am I right with this?
He made the drinks.
He made the drinks, yeah, exactly, right? So Sonny, who's an absolutely spectacular guy, he's been at Musso and Frank for like 25 years, I think, or 20 years. Spectacular guy. He's probably one of my favorite bartenders at Musso and Frank, so I was really happy to see that. And there was a server as well, right, that was in from Musso's crew in the movie?
Yes, indeed. He was the waiter taking care of Marvin and Rick. And Sonny actually, you know, to perfection, he worked really hard on his whiskey sour making skills, and Quentin's very hard on the whiskey sour, you know.
No, they do a spectacular job there. It's one of those things. Recently, I was featured in a book, and Sonny is not in the book, but he's mentioned in the book a lot as a mentor to the gentleman who works at Musso and Frank as well. So we have the whiskey sour here, which I'm going to take a little sip of. Very dry now.
All right.
Cheers, everyone. And then we'll cheers later when we do our Hennessy XO on the rock. Now, it's funny, a lot of times we know there's product placement and stuff like that, but sometimes the product really fits the environment, and this was definitely one of them. Where he orders the XO on the rocks, the cognac. I'm trying to think of how many cocktails were in the movie Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. There was obviously the whiskey sour. Brad Pitt's drinking a Bloody Mary when they're at Musso. Mr. Schwartz has the cognac on the rocks. But when they're featuring the movie that has, the movie was what? Tanner and the 14/5 of McCluskey, where they did the double feature at Mr. Schwartz's house. They had a mint julep and he had the cognac on the rock there. So it's just great to see a great product, especially Hennessy XO here that, let's see, there are 100 different eau de vies in here. So when you're making cognac, you're a blender more than anything. You have to have at least 2 eau de vies, which eau de vie is just the great spirit that they make with this. But the older they get, the next though is it has to be at least 10 years old, but the older they get, they have to blend it so the flavor is consistent. And in this one, there are 100 eau de vies that are at least 30 years old. So it's very fitting that a movie that features such a timeless timeless scenes, such as Musso and Frank drinking Eggshell on the Rock, that it's a perfect fit. It really was. I can't picture Al Pacino now without thinking Hennessy Eggshell on the Rock. So anyway, we'll do a little toast here. Does someone want to toast with me here? Neal.
I have mine.
We'll do the Rick, was it not Rick Dolan, Caleb Dakota. And it wasn't Dakota. How do you say his last name? It wasn't Dakota, it was Dakota.
Deco 2.
Deco 2, thank you. His toast in the movie was, here's to my wife and all my sweethearts, may they never meet. So cheers to everyone on that.
Cheers.
This is delicious.
Cheers. That was
Cheers.
great, Tobin. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
About Hennessy XO and all that. I never knew all that. I knew I liked it.
Exactly, right? It's spectacular. It's so good. Like, I'm so happy to be sipping on this right now.
Thanks, Tobin.
My pleasure.
Hey, Neal, for everyone who wants to make the Cherries Jubilee at home, can you run through the ingredients again and just the process?
Yeah. So, well, I lost some of them. Cherries from the farmer's market or a nice produce market. Pitted. A little bit of sugar with a little bit of cornstarch in it just to kind of keep, so it kind of sets up when you're cooking it down. Fresh squeezed orange juice and a high proof alcohol. We used this rum.
No, you didn't use Hennessy XO.
Oh, we used this Hennessy XO. What I drink, when I have Cherries Jubilee, we always use something that's at least $100 a bottle. So we keep our food costs very high.
That's the baller life.
We're all fancy now that we're in quarantine.
I just added the sugar in the pan, let it start to caramelize, added the orange juice, flambéed with the XO. Add the cherries, add some butter, spoon it over ice cream, rewatch the video again. Or go to the interwebs and I'm sure you could find a demo as well. But yeah, if you wanted to go to the store, orange juice, sugar, cornstarch, Hennessy XO, butter, ice cream, cherries. Super simple.
Nice. Thanks for running through that with us.
Yeah.
And then actually, Tobin, do you mind also just summarizing the ingredients that you used for the whiskey sour along with the measurements and the whiskey brand, if you don't mind?
So yeah, 3/4 fresh lemon juice, simple syrup. We use a rich one, 2 parts sugar, 1 part water, 3/4 that, or let's do half. A little half on the dry curacao, which is an orange liqueur, and then 2 ounces on the Woodinville bourbon out of Washington State. Or any bourbon, but Woodinville is spectacular. Whatever you have in your house.
Awesome, thank you. And we're gonna send the recipes out to everyone along with a link to tonight's discussion and demo. So you'll have that at home for sure. Neal, if you don't mind coming back over, we have some questions from our attendees, and then those of you who haven't submitted a question yet, please feel free to do so. So Neal, you're a native Angelino, and I mentioned earlier that Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is Quentin Tarantino's love letter to LA. What's your impression of the film as a native Angelino? How does it hold up to your experience with LA?
Well, I never was fortunate enough to meet Charles Manson. I did have some friends who lived out in old, like Northridge area, which is, where that ranch was. I kind of remember where that ranch was originally. I grew up in Laurel Canyon. I actually did get to I walked by the John Holmes murder scene, not knowing what it was, on my BMX bike, walking home from school one day. But there's a lot of kind of stuff in LA that you don't necessarily think is true, or stuff that you think is true, it's not, and vice versa. That's why I kind of think it's kind of a cool play on, alternative reality. Because growing up in LA, that's kind of the existence you had because you were a kid and you got half information. So if you would have told me that story when I was a kid, I would be like, yeah, sure, that was true. But it's interesting, like, my parents were not of the hippie generation, so my parents were a little older, but I grew up in that kind of genre. Like one of my best friends growing up, his father was married to Eartha Kitt, and my dad was a musician, but kind of on the, Benny Goodman was kind of like the last person he kind of, related to musically. But I think it kind of tells a story. I mean, I grew up, on Mulholland. I went to the Valley and the city, so a lot of it really played very true to my memory. Other than I didn't have a convertible, I had, a bus pass. So we used to say that Richard T. Davis was coming to pick us up. Doesn't make any sense anymore because they call it Metro, but it used to be the RTD. But all that stuff, it rang very true. And I spent a lot of time on Hollywood Boulevard. So, and the premiere, which I was fortunate enough to go to, they had the after party at the Roosevelt, which I also thought was super fitting because that, the place just looks, obviously it's been updated, but it feels very old and true to character.
Amazing. Okay. And then Shannon, there were so many amazing, iconic locations shown throughout the entire film, but were there any that you guys shot that didn't make it into the film, or any that were up for consideration that didn't make it in?
We had to kind of, originally we wanted to do Hollywood Boulevard, we wanted to do a bit longer, but we couldn't quite shut down that many blocks, and, it was more expensive because you had to redecorate everything. But we did pretty well with most of the locations we wanted to shoot at. We actually got. We were able to shoot at the Playboy Mansion, which is now just the mansion because someone else owns it, had bought it from half. So it was a lot of the gentleman that owns it now was convincing him that we weren't going to destroy the property, that we would keep the integrity of the property. And he was at the time doing some work with it just to bring it back to its luster, which ended up working in our behalf because it looked like it would have looked back then. But we were able to work it out. That was when we thought it wasn't going to work. Westwood Village, we had to be really careful as when we could shoot there because the kids were coming back to go to school. College students were coming back to go to school. So they were very specific about what we could and couldn't do. And, that's also an area that looks so much like it did then with the theaters across from each other. Of course, there are different restaurants and things there. So we had to redress some things, but the architecture unto itself is a lot the way it was, which is the beauty of some of LA, that it hasn't changed that much. So you can have that nostalgic moment. And what that also did is a lot of people would go to Westwood Village or to different places and take their pictures. And then it became this viral thing, like here's where Rick Dalton was, or, here's where Sharon was. And so it was kind of fun watching people put all their tag on the Once Upon a Time in Hollywood posts and where they went to. But no, I'd say with a filmmaker like Quentin, people, he tells a great story. We all know from Pulp Fiction and Jackie Brown and Reservoir Dogs that places he shoots become known and become iconic. And I think that it's well received when you walk into a place with him, and he will actually go and talk to the owners or the people who do the, the final say so on where you can shoot. So it makes my job, it's not easy, but it helps.
Not to mention too, that was quite the ensemble cast that you had there too. Like when you get that many stars together under one film, like it's absolutely spectacular. And two, it just seems like everyone's working together to put like the best product out versus like trying to make their own star shine.
Exactly. And when you have such accomplished actors, they all, it's about working together. And it was nice seeing Brad and Leo work together. They had never worked together, and they're such accomplished actors and wonderful humans. And it was really fun to watch them work together. So we had a dream team for sure.
Great. We have a question for Tobin. If you're vegan, what is a good egg white substitute for the cocktail?
Chickpea water. So take the can of chickpeas that you have in your house, open it up, strain out that water. Yeah, no, they call it agua-faba, but I won't bore you with, yeah, exactly, strange words. Just strain the chickpea water out, use that as your emulsifier. It works spectacular. You might notice a small smell of bean, but it's not really that detectable. Use a higher proof whiskey. if you're going to do that.
At least $100 a bottle, right?
Yeah, yes, exactly, right?
Does it
$100 a bottle, like
Usually
Tennessee
VSOP.
XRP. Yeah, exactly. Right?
and does it froth the chickpea?
Yeah, no, 100%. It does everything that an egg white does.
Smells like beans.
Like I said, there's a slight odor of bean, but not that much. Like I said, just use a higher proof whiskey, or add, to be honest, add a little bit more lemon juice. Like add, but equal it out with the sugar. So a little bit more lemon, a little bit more simple agua faba or chickpea water, if you would, and then the whiskey. It does a spectacular job. It really does.
Nice. That's a good tidbit.
All right.
Question for Neal. Someone had the BLD pancakes, the ricotta pancakes. They wanted to see if you'll continue offering your pancakes for pickup on the weekend.
Yes, we're going to continue the pancakes. And then we're also, we have these little log cabins that I haven't been able to source for a long time. And they all of a sudden came back in. So we're going to also eventually be able to sell the log cabins with the maple syrup from our friends at Dufresne Sugar House in the Berkshires in Massachusetts.
Okay.
Nice.
Or Massachusetts. Two-sits.
And another question for you, Neal. You've done great meals for Mother's Day, which just happened. What is the next event that you guys are planning on doing a special takeout menu for?
Definitely Father's Day. We're going to do Christmas to go as well. New Year's Eve to go.
I think in Neal's defense, like this is so new, like figuring out the to-go thing and figuring out experiences for our guests or our guests, that we're trying like to think 5-6 weeks ahead so we can really make it right. To make it spectacular, when you take it home, you feel like you're at Redbird, or you have an experience that you would have at Redbird. So we're trying to think 5-6 weeks ahead right now and plan that out.
But it's also like, it's a constantly moving goalpost. So we're really not sure, you know, we will probably in one shape or form be doing to go for the not so distant, you know, for the next year or so. But definitely Father's Day is something that I really feel like something that sets us apart from other restaurants is sourcing the ingredients. And I think that it's hard to find great steaks. And I think that with enough lead time, we can definitely reach out to some of our suppliers, make some great sausage, be able to procure some great cuts of meat, and do a Father's Day thing, which will be coming up right around the corner. If we aren't open by July 4th, we'll definitely do a July 4th thing. I love really doing like kind of, you know, summer menus like clam bakes and lobster boils, although we haven't planned on that. Definitely as we get into summertime, doing kind of a, you know, one of those kind of menus, lobster boil, crab boil, crawfish boil, I think are really super fun ways. And again, sometimes it's hard for people to, you know, procure, you know, fresh crawfish or live lobsters. And that's something that we don't have any issues doing. You can come get a box of live lobsters and do an outside kind of, you know, barbecue themed summer holiday thing.
Sounds great.
That sounds fun. Stay tuned for that. Shannon, knowing that Quentin puts a lot of detail into his scripts, were the drink and food choices written in, or were there, you know, was there a lot of thought that went into whiskey sour, or were there multiple options, or was it just decided from the jump that that's what it was going to be?
Quentin's very detailed, so all that was in there. So he doesn't miss a beat on those things.
I always heard about Quentin Tarantino that when he creates a character in his head that he'll be like, this person will wear this kind of shoes. So I would imagine this movie, like he was like, this person would be drinking this cocktail.
For sure, for sure. When it comes to working with actors like Leo and Brad, though, he does let them bring things to the table and different things about their character. But the drinks and those things were certainly in the script.
All right. Well, thank you guys again. Before we close, Neal, can you just remind us again which days you have takeout, and are you doing takeout cocktails? That's a very important question. I hope that trend stays.
We are doing, we're not doing beer, we're doing wine, we're doing cocktails, we're doing food. The menus are kind of slowly evolving week by week. And we're doing it Thursday, Friday, and Saturday on Talk, and it's available between 4 and 7 p.m. And if our demand grows, we'll probably add a day as we kind of grow into the new normal, but right now we're doing Thursday through Saturday. And the cocktails are relatively consistent, but we have the bar kit, which Tobin can talk about.
We do like a cocktail kit, and it's mostly, it has 4 cocktails in it, and it's kind of like a do-it-yourself thing. And we do Instagram Live every Friday to where 5 cocktails. Oh, at 5 p.m. At 5 p.m. Excuse me. No, I don't even know my own spiel. Yeah, at 5 o'clock. At 5 o'clock, we do 4 cocktails that you can make on your own, and we supply all the ingredients for you.
And the other thing we're kind of thinking about growing into is kind of a, you know, one time a week, whether it'll change every week, but kind of doing like a Blue Apron experience kind of on steroids, where it'd be, you know, more of a, I'm thinking of a braise. The first thing I want to play around with is this dish we haven't really run at Redbird, but we have it on the menu at Grace, which is a braised pork shank. I actually have some pork shanks coming this week from one of our suppliers. They're based in New York City, but they source all their pork from Paradise Meat Locker in Kansas, and doing like a really beautiful braised pork shank dish that would come all raw, that you'd spend all day laboring over. Kind of like pancakes, but 5 times longer.
This was such a treat for us. Thank you guys so very much. Shannon, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is fantastic. It really just is a beautiful showcase of Los Angeles. So thank you. It was such a pleasure to have you.
Thank you for having me.
And Neal and Tobin, this was wonderful. I'm now thirsty and hungry. So thank you guys so very, very, very much. And LA Tourism will send out a link to recipes and to this experience tonight. So you'll have this and make a whiskey sour and watch the movie.
All right.
But thank you again. Really appreciate it, guys.
Everyone. Bye.